Good morning or afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. Welcome to Fearless and Free TV. And today I'm excited to introduce a new friend of mine, Sherri Divband. We've met a couple of times on other channels, and today we get to meet here. Sherri is the author of two books, Intuitive Transformation Evolution, and another book, Divinely Guided. And this one, I think, is what we're going to be talking about today. It's a book for divinely guided teens and children and their parents. And so today we are going to be talking about conscious parenting, and particularly parenting starseeds. A lot of us either are starseeds and have starseed children, or technically, I guess if we're starseeds, it's a given that we have starseed children because that's how it works. So I'm going to bring Sherri on to introduce herself, talk a little bit about what you do and about your books, and it's an exciting topic.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about the children today and parenting. There's just so much going on right now.
Yeah. So how did you find out about the idea of starseeds? Because I know that's a subject that I've seen you talk about on a few of the other channels.
I think having my own children was my awakening. I've always been spiritual, and I used to research a lot and read tons of books. I just wanted to learn about everything. And then it wasn't until I started having my children where I had, because, you know, when you have children, you have, you go through an awakening process each time you give birth. And every single time I had a child, that exact thing happened to me, where I feel like my level of awareness shifted and heightened with each one. But when I started noticing the characteristics of like, let's say my first, I always thought like my child is different. You know, everybody loves their children and thinks they're different and special, of course. But I just thought, God, he's just so unique and he's so different. And the things that he would say and the way he would act didn't seem like a typical child to me. He would see things. He saw angels. He would ask me about them. And then I started researching, you know, what and they have, you know, the term New Age children, which I never liked that term. I didn't really agree with the name. I think that was a New Age type of way to call them, but that's not actually what they are. And so I just kept researching them. And then with each child I got even more information. And then it wasn't until I had my third, my daughter Aramis, she came to me about a year before I got pregnant and told me she's coming, who she was or who she is, where she's coming from, what she's here to do. And she said, you're going to be writing a book about the different types of children. And you've been blessed with two types that are very different. And this is where they come from. And I'm coming from a different place, and having that experience of raising us is going to help you to help other parents who have starseed children, their different characteristics, and we're all very different, and we're all very different for a reason. And you have to be patient with us, and you have to allow us to be. And it was a beautiful experience. And it's interesting because she's right. All three children are completely different, like night and day different. They have similarities, but their personalities are so unique. And so I really did get to have to be very patient and open-minded and just be very aware of the different qualities that these kids have and why they have them, what they're going to use them for. And so it's a lot of my own children, but then through my practice of doing energy healing, a lot of parents started coming to me over the years. And I think that not because I advertised for it, I think it was just divinely guided, where they would ask me about their gifted children and what they should do with them. And it just started to become a theme where I started seeing more and more parents looking for guidance on how to raise their spiritually gifted children. And I always thought, how are these people coming to me? I'm not even really advertising for this, but it just happened and frequently. And so that's where the book idea came from, because I thought a lot of these parents are struggling. They need advice on why their children are, or child is the way it is, where they come from, why they have unique characteristics, why they're different, what they're here to do. And then also to help the teens that are ready to read it, read the book. So young adults and teens, to understand who they are and why they are the way they are, and what category potentially they fall into, and what their life mission is. And then the idea is, as the younger generations grow older, they too will be able to read the book. So the idea is that the parenting section is more for parents to understand why their children are the way they are, and then to help raise them more consciously. And then the teens that are struggling right now have an avenue or a resource to read and understand their mission and what they're here to do and why they're different. And then the younger generation, as they grow old, as they get older, they'll have more resources. And I'd like to write different additions as I get to learn more, and my children grow and these children grow, and we're learning more about them. Because I know a lot more about divine children now than I did a year and a half ago when I started writing the book. And now I learned recently that there's a whole nother group coming in that I just found out about 2 weeks ago. So I feel like it's evolving and ever changing. But I think it was my children that really got things going for me in my journey personally.
Yeah, it tends to work that way. I call my daughter my spiritual catalyst, because I had no spiritual inclinations whatsoever until she started telling me things. That really surprised me, because I grew up, with a very fundamentalist religion, and I thought all that was what I had been taught. But my daughter started telling me things that just I had no idea were even possible. Like your child, she told me that at night, when she slept, she would leave her body and go play with her angel friends.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I didn't even know. That's a word that's never even been mentioned in our house. How do you even know that?
And this is a perfect example. This is what these parents were coming to me saying, my child says they sees their angels, or they're telling me about their past life. What do I do? That's exactly because they weren't raised spiritual. They didn't know these things. So they were coming to me for guidance, for me to help teach them, but also, okay, what do I do with my child? What do I say when they say that there's an angel in the room, or grandma's here? Hi, grandma, and they never met them before, So this happens all the time to a lot of different parents, and so I think that as the adults are awakening, along with the children coming in to help shift paradigms and help us get into a higher frequency and a higher awareness, it's just like a beautiful combination going on.
Yeah. Now, do you find that a lot of these kids are diagnosed with learning disorders, if you will, because they don't fit into the spectrum of what would be considered normal?
Yeah, I have a whole chapter in my book about that, and I wish that, I have so much more information now that I have to share, because I know even more now. I like to call it the energetic perspective of Asperger's, autism, and ADHD. I have a whole section on my website currently right now about that. And so I'm not a doctor, and so this is strictly a energetic perspective and a conscious perspective on what I have been told. And the way I learned a lot of this is through sessions with children, and I talk to their higher self, and they tell me these things. That's how I've learned it. Some of it's through channeling that I've downloaded through my guides and spiritual teachers, but a lot of what I know is actually working and connecting with these children's higher self. So I feel very grateful to have been connected with them, because they're my teachers too, and that's how I've been able to help a lot of others. So there's different perspectives, right? So we have, I don't know if we're allowed to say certain terms on is there restrictions, or I can say the labels, the names?
I think so. I mean, sure, right? As parents are struggling with trying to understand why their kids are different. I mean, so for me, both of my kids were labeled ADHD plus, and ADHD usually has a sub-label that goes with it. So they both had, one of them's ADHD with impulsivity disorder, and the other one was ADHD with like OCD and anxiety disorder. And so for me, I was very fortunate that I tuned in and I asked their higher selves how to work with them. Mm-hmm. But for parents who aren't aware that their special kids actually are special.
Yeah.
That I think it's really helpful for them to understand what it's really about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and it's a gift, and it's part of these new earth children coming in. I call them new earth children. So these new earth children are coming as high frequency, high vibrational, ascended masters, these beings that are coming in very powerful, trying to merge in density with these human bodies. And so they're struggling a little bit, and a lot of it has to do with energy. So we'll take ADHD, for instance. So most children that are ADHD are very right brain. So They're high vibrational, they're creative, they're tuned in with their higher self, and their vibration is so high that when they merge with this physical body, the vibration is very intense. And so they cannot, this is why they can't sit still. They feel like they have to move a lot because they literally feel the energy within them, and it's constantly ever changing and moving and shifting. And so that's why a lot of them can't sit still. They're so right brain, they have trouble focusing, especially in school. So the fluorescent lighting, the sitting still for long periods of time, focusing on one teacher in one subject is very difficult for them because their mind is constantly moving. They're thinking about 20 different things at the same time. They need an energetic outlet or some sort of creative outlet in order to help them tune in and focus. And that's very challenging for them because their vibration is just so intense and they don't understand why. So oftentimes they'll act out in class, they'll get in trouble, and the teachers will shame them. Unfortunately, they just don't know. So they think that they're acting out. And really, these children are having trouble articulating what's wrong, what's happening. It's not that there's something wrong, but what's going on within their body, why they can't sit still, why are they having trouble focusing. It takes them time to process. So the teacher moves on to another subject or another part of that subject. They're still trying to process what they just said. And then they move on. And then what happens is they get lost, and then they become very frustrated because they are confused and don't know what's going on. And that's why a lot of them are on medication to slow that down. But the problem is, and again, I'm not telling parents not to put their child on medication, but it's helpful for them to understand what's happening is when they take in that medication, what happens is it causes that vibrant frequency that they have, that beautiful aspect that actually makes them unique and is a beautiful thing. It brings it really condenses it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, condenses it, lowers the vibration, and then these children walk around like they are a shell of themselves. They become numb. They are able to hyper focus, but they are the essence of them has been shut off, and so that's why they don't want to eat. They kind of look like they're zombies. I have probably upwards of 20, 30 clients that have come to me over the last 5 years that are adults saying, one half-hour session with me explaining just this one thing. They said that no one in their whole life has explained to them exactly how they felt until then, and they had been medicated their whole adolescent years. And they said if their parents just had understood that, then they would have had a completely different experience because they felt like they were a shell of themselves and completely numb. And so they're very high vibrational. They're very right-brained. They need movement. They need different learning styles, just different mechanisms where they're allowed to be outside, to move, to switch subjects, to channel their creative energy through different avenues. A lot of these children need to be in sports or take art or something where there's movement. And so that's a lot of the misconception with ADHD, and a lot of them are OCD because they have to figure out a way where they are in control. So they latch on to certain things. Okay, well, I need to do this, and it has to be this exact way because in their mind, that's something that they can control. So they grasp onto that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
They have high anxiety. They have anxiety because they don't fit in with society and they don't understand why. They get confused, they get shamed, they get into trouble. They don't know how to articulate what's going on or what their frustration really is. So they have anxiety about everything. They have anxiety about going and out with other children in large groups or fitting in or going to school or just being a part of society because they recognize that they're different. Mm-hmm. And because they're not supported, they feel that there's something wrong with them when there actually is not. They're here to be the innovators, to as paradigms are broken down, they are going to rebuild them in a much beautiful, more vibrant way. And they're here with this massive intelligence and this frequency of love to shift our world and our environment. And we need to allow them to flourish and guide them in the way that they're able to feel free and not boxed in, because that's why they're here. They're not meant to be put in a box. They're meant to be taken out of the box and help others break out of the box, help their parents break out of their box and their pre-programming, and have us look at things in a different way. Now, if you take a child that has Asperger's, they're very left brain. So these children, these souls are usually come from a place that's very intelligent, very advanced civilization. So they are highly intelligent, very cognitive thinkers, very analytical, introverted, shy. They like to break things down and understand the components, put it back together. They're builders, they're engineers. They don't fit in with society in a different way because they don't recognize childlike activities. They don't want to play. They want to be by themselves. They sometimes gravitate more to adults. They want to learn. They thrive when their brain is working and processing. They also similar to ADHD. They take time to process. And the reason for that is not because of distraction. They're highly intelligent. They get it right away. Their challenge is they want to understand it. They process it, they break it down, they rebuild it, and then they need to regurgitate it to the person that they're talking to, a teacher, a parent, and that can be very frustrating to parents because they need the time to process and regurgitate so that they feel that people are understanding, or they feel that they understand in a way that it's explained back. I don't know how to describe that. I'm not having an easy time with that. But
no, I understand. Now, for me,
yeah.
So my son was labeled ADHD and all these other things, but he had 4 of the 6 markers for Asperger's. So I get what you're talking about. And what I found with him is that he'll repeat himself. It's like the information goes in and then he has to repeat it to fully understand it, which for people who don't understand, he's just processing the information out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the other thing I wanted to share when I tuned in with both my kids when they were small and I had the ability to access their higher selves, I asked their higher selves about them. And what I was told is that they are high vibration children and they require high vibration food. Which is why I never medicated either one of my kids, but I was so careful what I put in their bodies because these kids are so much more sensitive to the chemicals that are put into our food.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I talk about that in the book as well. I think all of these New Earth children their bodies are more, because they're so high vibrational, because a lot of them are coming in with that crystalline DNA, their body is already activated. They require more natural food, and they're much more sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. So the waves of all of the internet and the TV and the watches and the lights, all of that really messes with their system. I feel like we have a delay.
We do.
Okay.
Mine's fine, but for some reason yours keeps glitching. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure why.
My end like yours is glitching.
Yeah, that's weird. Not sure why that's happening because no one's home right now. So usually I have 5 kids 5 of us all at the internet at the same time. So yeah, the food is very important. We don't have to talk about this today, but the jabs are extremely influential on their system as well in a negative way. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on from an energy perspective with these children. So a lot of them just a lot of these parents just need to understand what's happening and help guide their children. And this takes a lot of patience. What do they need? Why are they different? Okay, now I understand why. Okay, now I'll parent them in a different way, or perhaps put them in a program where they can cater to their needs. It takes a lot of conscious parenting to work with not only the labeled ADHD or Asperger's or autistic children, but just any of these new Earth children, because they're all high vibrational and they're all unique and they're all special and they all require some method of holistic parenting, right? Whether it's nutrition or just connection and support.
So then also, I found that with conscious parenting, it's more difficult than default parenting, if you will, because it requires that we also, in essence, basically it's reparenting ourselves. And parenting these children really causes us to take a deeper look into our own issues and the triggers, because these are such high vibration kids that tend to trigger up our own stuff. And recognize it's not actually them, it's our stuff being triggered for us to resolve. So The conscious parenting is a lot more work than just yelling at your kids when they make you angry. And so I wanted to talk about that as well, and how consciously parenting these star seeds, I think, is more work, which is, why I wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah, it breaks. It's, that a lot of these children are here to teach us, and they know it. On some level, these kids come in and they know, they're like, I have my 8-year-old, I would not be surprised if at some point he's labeled Asperger. He's exactly how I described. He has to, even if I'm in a rush some days and I can't let him regurgitate for 5 minutes what I just said, because I'm just like, oh my God, I know what you're trying to say. And I'm in a rush. And this poor kid is just like, he won't let me though. He'll keep talking. Even if I'm walking out of the room, he'll follow me. And he's still saying, because it's like an obsessive compulsive part of them, right? They cannot stop unless they know that the person is recognizing what they're saying in their opinion, not my opinion. I could tell him I understand, but he has to believe it, right? And so these children are very intelligent and very aware. They read energy, and they're here to break us, the adults that have been programmed our whole life, and perhaps have not had an awakening, or have an awakening, or we're all continually awakening, even if we're awake. They're here to teach us. And it's difficult because you see aspects of yourself within them that you don't like, and it forces you to heal that part of you, that inner child. And it's a lot of work, and it can keep you up at night, and it can make you emotional, and it can make you frustrated. But in the end, that's what they're here to do. They're here to help break us open, and then so we can then heal ourselves with their guidance and their help too. So, even though we have a parent and a child, in the constructs of Earth, there are two individual, high vibrational, exceptional souls that are here on their journeys, and they're very much equal. But when you think about in the paradigm of like parent-child, it's hard for parents to conceptualize that their child it could be more evolved than they are. But I forgot my point with talking about Skylar, my son, is that I know, because we can telepathically communicate, I know that he knows that he's more advanced and evolved than me. And there have been moments where he's been frustrated with me because I could feel him thinking that. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, Mom, already. Like, I'm here to teach you. Do you get it yet? I don't know how else to articulate it, but I know it and I feel it. And that's what they're doing for a lot of parents. And so it is a lot to take in, especially with parents that are dealing with adult things, work, finances, stress. And we're dealing with our own things. And on top of that, and then our children are also breaking us open, making us deal with things that we don't want to necessarily deal with, in that moment or at all. Some of us may not. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right with that.
Yes. So one of the things I found interesting about now with my son, for example, which I think is part of the Asperger's, is they see themselves as equal to adults. So they get very frustrated. And so my son's, one of the reasons he's not autistic is that he started speaking very, very young. He by the time he was a year old, he already knew 50 words, talking in complete sentences by the time he was a year and a half. And so he couldn't understand why adults couldn't communicate with him on an adult level. And I was at the elementary school one day. He was in kindergarten, and the principal came out and talked to me. She said, "You need to have a talk with your son, because he called me Susan, and I'm not okay with my students calling me by my first name." And I was inside laughing. I'm like, how did he even know what her first name was, for starters? But he couldn't understand why anybody else would not be at the same level as him.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating, that these kids coming in are so bright and so brilliant and so advanced that they get what we don't even see as adults, and have the ability to communicate with us on that level. But adults can't grasp that these kids already have that capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, some of us takes our whole life to like really grasp it or conceptualize that, where they're already like armored with those tools, they have that within them. And so that's another part. That's a good point for parenting. These children, you can't say no to them. And those with Asperger's or a hyper awareness or an intelligence, you have to have a conversation with them. There is no because I said so with these kids. It's okay, well, explain why. And then when I've noticed with him in particular, if I explain the reason why, I could see him processing it and saying, "Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense." And then and there's no argument. He's like, "Oh, okay, mom." But if I just said no, there's no way he would be okay with that. Like, I have to take the time to explain why the answer is no. And that doesn't work. That's not necessarily, and it doesn't work with all children, because I have a rainbow child, the girl that I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not work with her. She could care less why I'm saying no. There's going to be an argument of some sort, and it's much more involved and it's different. But with him, once he understands the reason, even if he doesn't necessarily like it, he understands because he's so smart. He's like, "Oh, okay, I get it, mom." And it's even though I understand all of this, there are days where I meet other children, not just my own, and they just open my heart in a way that I didn't know was possible. It feels pretty open, but then it just opens even more because they're so wise and they're so unbelievably compassionate. It's out of this world. I've never seen it in my whole life until I started working with kids and paying attention. They are so aware of other people's energy. They want everybody to be happy and in a good mood. They don't like to see people sad. They are so intelligent. They're very exceptional. Really is the best word.
With animals too. They're incredibly compassionate with animals, which I find really fascinating.
Oh yeah, they're all because they're very connected. They understand the animals and their intelligence and their purpose, and they look at them differently and they appreciate them. And my son is just he's so connected to animals, and a lot of them are, and a lot of them can communicate with the animals. They'll tell you what's wrong with them. They'll tell you what they said, because they are at that. Animals are at that fifth density. And these children are at that fifth density as well. So they match. So it's sometimes easier for them to communicate with them than it is for them to communicate or try to communicate with adults that are much lower density.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter's like that. She talks to the cats. She's like, "Mom, Link's ears are itchy." Okay. Not what I would have ever in years imagined, but yeah, they have the capacity to talk to animals, or they communicate with trees and other beings, and they can see. At least I know in my daughter's case, she could see multidimensional beings. Apparently, we have fourth dimensional beings that have been living in our house for years with us, and she named them all. And yeah, she said they look scary, but they're actually not scary. They just don't look, they're just not human. So I find that just really interesting that these kids can see things and know things that we can't, even as much as you and I both. And I'm a conscious channel and I'm always tuned in, and there's a part of me that can't see what they can see.
Yeah. I had a lady call me in a panic a few months ago, crying. My son's telling me he travels interdimensionally and time travel, and he's got this guide in Japan named this, and we meet every night, and she was freaking out, panicking. And I had to calm her down, and we talked a little bit more, and I was able to tell her, "Hey, this is a really cool thing." Once I made sure it was positive, all these experiences that she was sharing, and there wasn't anything negative, and I tuned in to make sure. But once I calmed her down and made her realize that this is actually a beautiful gift, and your child, and he's also autistic, she's night and day different. When we talk now, she's like, "Oh my God, let me tell you about this cool thing that he did or what he said to me." And then, and you know what also happened? Once she stopped living in fear, she started, her gift started activating. And now she'll email me, oh my God, this happened to me. I did this, I did that. This is so cool. So it's like getting out of the fear vibration, right? And then that's how you really open up and you're able to tap in to these the higher awareness, or at least recognize what your children are tapping into.
Right. And it's about getting out of judgment, right? Getting out of judgment about who you think your kids need to be based on the shoulds, and also self-judgment. Because one of the things that I've seen a lot of parents run into is self-judgment of, what did I do to make my kid be this way? And what did I do when I was pregnant that they turned out like this? What did I eat that they turned out like this? What did I feed them, or what did I do to them to make them be this way? And a lot of this has to be, there's a lot of self-forgiveness that's involved with that, and no longer being in judgment of what we may or may not have done, because ultimately this soul chooses to come in and have the experience that it has.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there may be environmental reasons that cause the physicality to look the way that it does. Ultimately, though, it's still about the soul experience. And accepting our kids for who they are, and cultivating their greatest potential outside of the box of what the world says they should be.
Yeah, and that was I'm sorry. My daughter's knocking on the door. That was a big part of my of the book that I wanted to get that message across, is that these children are coming in with this knowing, as they in the adolescent years, as they get older, that they don't want to do a lot of the jobs out there. They recognize the issues with a lot of the society, the paradigms and the structure. And they don't like it, and these parents contact me, and they were like, my son is lost, my daughter's lost, she's 18, she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, I'm worried, and this and that. And then I'll talk to them, and we have a real conversation, and they're telling me that they don't agree with a lot of the jobs out there and what there is to do, and they have a problem with it, and they'll tell you why and break it down. And I explain to them, you're here, you guys have a hard job to do, because we've, over generations of time, it's been laid out for us, right? You become a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a police officer, you're this, you're a teacher. And oftentimes our parents, luckily not mine, but they tell you what they want you to do. And often, and the sad part is, a lot of times they channel that inner child energy of what they wish they had done, and they imprint that or mirror that on what they make their children do. And so a lot of adults walking around are doing things that they don't want to do. They're like, I've been in this job for 20 years. I hate it. Why did you do it? Well, my parents made me go into this career, and we're breaking out of that now. And so these children are argumentative, and they're telling their parents, I don't want to do that. This doesn't seem right to me. I don't actually want to go to college. And that's for a reason, because they're here to shift everything for us. Jobs are changing. School is changing. Life, the way we live our lives is changing. Every aspect of humanity, of our existence here on this planet, is shifting. And these amazing beings came in with this very tough job to do, to be able to stand up to society, to stand up to parents, to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. And we need to change it. And, these starseeds are strong and passionate, and albeit stubborn, but for a reason, because they're the few. My daughter is the most stubborn. She'll talk back. She's strong-willed, and most parents would look at her like, get her under control. And it's really more about, well, I'm just trying to harvest that life spark in her, because I know that when she's older, she is a leader. She will run a company. She will, whatever it is that she decides to do, she will be a leader in that. Whereas, I could tell my other kids are more of like, I'll be in the background, and I'll make sure everything works properly, but she will be in the front. And a lot of children are like that, and they're suited with that, right? For that characteristic, for a reason, because they're on a mission. No one can stop them. They have their blinders on, and they are moving. They got the momentum going. and they will finish the job. But unfortunately, the children right now in the teen and adolescent years are struggling. Mm-hmm. And that is why, because they are having a disconnect of what I'm being told I should do, what I see society doing, and this innate knowing that it's not right for them. And then, okay, now what do I do with that? That's a lot of the teens and 20s that come to me and desperate for help. I don't know what to do. And those are the ones that are really going to be the entrepreneurs. What do you want to do? Design what you would like your life to look like. And the unfortunate part, Victoria, right now is that we're living in such a money-driven world that's their biggest holdup is, well, I won't make money doing that, or I can't do that because I need to get a job.
They're creative, and they've been told the story that creatives don't make money, which we know is not true. Exactly. They're the ones that actually will make the most money moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just like they have to get over that hump. Yes. They have to get over that hump, right? And that's where the parents, if they're lucky, they have parents that will help them and guide them and allow them to figure that out. And so they have a tough job right now, and I feel for them.
I think now with my kids, I made it a point when they were really small to watch very carefully because kids will show you when they're really small what their natural propensities and gifts are, if parents are aware enough to pay attention. So like in my daughter's case, I noticed when she was really, really small that she was an artist. Mm-hmm. And she had all kinds of eye issues. Physically, there's no reason she could have been an artist, according to her eye doctor, but she was an artist. I recognized that, and I cultivated that the entire time she was growing up. So now she's going to art school. Well, sort of. She's on break because she went to art school on Zoom and decided that was a waste of time. So she's taking a semester off of school. But part of that is that I felt really fortunate in that I was aware enough to recognize her gifts as a child and cultivate those gifts rather than, because what happens with people when they tell their kids that they should be something when they grow up, they end up having a midlife crisis and being really depressed human beings. And then when they're in their 50s, they decide to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. Mm-hmm. Why not cultivate that when they're young so they don't have to go through that 25-year learning lesson? With my son, I'm still trying to figure it out. But like your son, and they're both argumentative, right? That's a sign of a leader. Why would we cultivate leadership out of our kids?
Yeah.
When they come in with that natural gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a deep, awakening when my son was about 4 years old, and he was just being very argumentative with me, very stubborn. And I found myself, because I'm very impatient too. That's part of my learning. I'm trying to learn to be more patient and supportive of them. And I've shifted a lot, and I've grown incredibly. But about, I would say 4 years ago, I heard a voice. I was frustrated. I was like, just no, sit down. Like, no. And I didn't want to explain why. I was having one of those days where no, I'm saying no, that's it. And I heard this voice in my head from my guide say, Sherri, don't break him. Stop. Mm-hmm. And I had to stop thinking about it. I'm sorry. I had to stop in that moment. And I thought about it and I said, gosh. And I wanted to cry because it was so real. And it's like, don't break these kids. Mm-hmm. Don't shake them out of what their qualities are or what their unique gifts are. That they're suited for that for a reason, because they need that later in life. So nourish it. Mm-hmm. There are challenging moments, of course, but it does help me as a parent, at least, have a more of an awareness. So in the difficult moments, I actually am more patient, because I know what the end goal is. And so I know that this is just a moment in time and it will pass. And how I handle it has a lot to do with how he's going to feel confident in his abilities and in himself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really difficult thing to do. And it takes patience and trial and error. And nobody's perfect. But I think that is a big part of it. And Victoria, I saw a comment about someone that said, my daughter doesn't like school.
Thank you.
I just happened to notice that one. My daughter doesn't like school. And I just want to talk about that real quick, because most children don't. And it's not because they're lazy, and it's not because they're not intelligent, and it's not because they're trying to be argumentative. these children innately know that the school system and what we're wasting their time with is not right. And I got this message. I talked about this a few months ago in one of my videos. I got a message back when my son was like, my son that's 16 now, but so 10 years ago around, he was about 6, that the school system would change and things were changing. And I didn't know what that meant. And and over the next 5 years after that, I started getting more and more messages, and I started getting visions of what that looked like. Which is why I created this center that I have now. But I believe that they're coming in with this knowing that 8 hours a day of them learning about half of the stuff is not even truth, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it's a waste of time. They're not learning the things that they actually need to learn, and they know it, and they struggle with it because they don't feel in their body and their soul that like there's benefit to it. And we know as an adult, if you're doing something that you don't want to do and you have to do, you're not going to enjoy it. So these kids are being forced to sit there and learn history and learn all of these things that 45, 50%, if not more, actually, they're never going to use. It's just filling time. And so they're getting stressed out about grades. They're being told they need to sit still and listen. And they're very stressed out about the report cards that they're getting and what mom and dad is going to say about it and what their grades are and how they compare to the other kids in the class and what level they're at. For what? Like, I struggle for that, and I see that. And when I see my son sitting and trying to do virtual class and he's breaking down crying at 8 years old because he doesn't understand something, I want to just throw the computer out the window and tell him none of this matters. It's okay. But unfortunately, imagine if he's struggling, how many millions of children are feeling the same way and they feel that pressure. They know that this is not right. They know that there's more to life than what this is right now. And I feel it's shifting. So right? Yeah. I just wanted to say that your daughter's not alone, and a lot of them feel that way. And this is why.
Yeah.
I think anyways.
Yeah. Well, my kids are both coming home with like a documentation that they had done their own research to show me, Mom, that all of the research shows that homework is actually bad for kids. All of the research shows. Did you know that school was invented during the Industrial Revolution to get the kids out of the way so the parents could go to work? The kids know this. Like, they're savvy of the whole school system is broken, and why in high school do I have to go through 4 years of math when I'm going to be an artist? That one I'm baffled by. And the kids know this. Any child who has done the research knows the school system doesn't work, and it was a system created for control. So
yeah.
My kids they're good kids. They don't talk back or anything in class, but they know. And so the school system considers these kids to be lazy, to be not teachable. And that's not it at all. They're bright kids. They just get that the system doesn't work. And I think we're going to be creating entirely new education systems because enough people are aware that it just doesn't work anymore, especially for these kids because they learn differently.
They do. And the whole dynamic is going to shift. Sorry, did I interrupt you? No. We have a delay, I think. Yeah. I mean, this is exactly why I was so adamant about getting my center up and going, because I feel like perhaps this is the first step. If enough parents have this opportunity for their children to learn about the earth, the things that are important, it's very spiritual based, of course. But I'd like to incorporate a lot of other things: gardening, nutrition, intuitive eating, body awareness, tools for anxiety and stress that are natural. Like, there's so many things that I would like to offer. And I hope that at some point more and more people are doing the same thing around the world. And then maybe the school systems will, I did an interview with Jay in April a while back, December or something. And they made a point. They're like, well, maybe you could be credentialed at some point and it could be an academic school. And I had never thought about that, but I don't think I want to necessarily, but how wonderful would it be if we integrated this where kids learn the essentials, math and reading, right? And writing. But then for not hours and hours a day, but just a little. And then the rest of the time they're learning about gardening and about the earth and the body and meditation and relaxation, like all of these things. That's actually what's important. And like you said, not 4 years of math when you want to be an artist. You know, my 16-year-old, I feel so bad for him. He's struggling right now because they're talking about him they have to pick what they want to do for a living, and they need to know what pathway to take, so that they can build up their portfolio and things like that. So they have to choose a lot of things. And I really struggle with that. And I tell him, don't worry about it. You're 16. Like, how do you know what you want to do? You haven't lived long enough. You haven't been out there enough to see what the options are. And I actually have a strong feeling like a lot of maybe not my son's age, but my younger ones, when they get older, and I've seen this and I've been told this multiple times when I've tapped into my guides and things, a lot of the jobs that are going to be available for these children, it doesn't exist at this moment, because we're in this transition period. So how can you have them plan out their future when their future doesn't exist at the moment? The opportunities are not there. And so there's too much pressure on them. And it really bothers me. It bothers me so much that high schoolers have so much stress and so much pressure for what? It's not necessary. And I think that more and more people like myself and you and parents around the world are supposed to get upset about it, so that we also facilitate change, because these kids can't do it on their own. So they need to be backed up by other parents, by other teachers that want to change the system as well, that see the problem areas, right? So that they are kind of fueled with that fight as well. Like, oh yeah, I agree with that. Because if all the parents were complacent and didn't agree with their children, we'd have a big problem.
Right. But, and I think, well, we've known for years, I've been having this conversation for about the last 10 years with people about how all of our systems need to change. And 2020 was really, as difficult of a year it was the gift that we needed to dramatically shift all of our systems. It was kind of like the kick in the booty that we needed to change our systems. And so I think a lot of things are going to change as a result of this big, giant pause button that we got put on last year. And a lot of people sitting at home started doing research and realizing, oh my gosh, all this stuff that I just took for granted isn't what I thought it was. The kids know it. The kids have been doing the research, but the parents are finally catching up to what it is the kids already know. And so like you, I have my son's 15, same thing, and he's in the school system, and they're trying to get him to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, you don't know. I mean, if we could educate kids to what their natural gifts and propensities are, rather than forcing them into this boxes that they need to fit in, then we'd have a completely different society. And when my kids were lucky, actually, our public school where I live, and I live in Redondo Beach, our public school actually has gardening and nutrition and yoga and mindfulness and meditation as part of the public school education, which I know is really unusual. So they grew up with that. That's a part of their consciousness. But I know a lot of school systems.
Incredible.
Yeah. Pretty lucky to go to school where they did. I don't know if they realized how lucky they were.
Yeah. They will one day.
And lots of parental involvement, because the parents are the ones that actually taught those classes.
Yeah. Wow, that's lovely.
Like a hybrid almost of what school used to be and what it can be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just reading some of the comments.
Yeah. The consciousness of the children, where they are what they need from us is to create like the platform upon what they will rise. Because they're young right now, they can actually create the systems. They need us to create the platform for them to do the building on. So it's kind of like we're the ones who are breaking down the old systems, and we're the ones with our hard-earned wisdom, if you will, that will start to create the new structures that they can then come in and fully integrate. So our role is to actively participate in breaking down the old systems and creating a solid structure that they can build on. This is one of the issues, and my kids actually explained this to me. My daughter, I call her a warrior goddess. She's like your daughter, very, very strong. She's 18 years old and very strong, and she is a warrior. And when she finds out what it is that she wants to do, she will be phenomenal at it because she's so strong and very, very strong human rights advocate. And so, but my kids tell me, here, Mom, here's the problem. Every generation expects the next generation to fix the mess the generation before them made.
They're so wise.
Right? And I said, I think my generation finally gets it. We don't expect the next generation to fix the mess we made. We expect to clean up our own mess and make a place for you to actually do something really amazing with. So I'm not going to leave the world a messy place for my kids to clean up. I'm going to clean up my own mess. And so it's the kids get that. That's amazing, is the kids understand. The kids now have access to all the same information that adults have access to for the first time, I think, ever in the human story. So, which is scary for parents to know that my kids have access to all the same information I do. At the same time, we acknowledge they have access to the same information we have access to. We can't hide it anymore. We can't indoctrinate our kids anymore because everything is out there for them to look at, just as it is for us. And so we have to parent completely differently than any of our parents in the past have, because these kids come in smart, they come in aware, and they know what's going on, and we can't pull the wool over their eyes. So we got to work.
And I think that brings up a good point of conflict between the older generations. So the grandparents and the parents are fighting a lot because the grandparents want their children to raise their grandchildren the way that they raised them, and they see the shift and they don't like it. And so there's a battle going on between the two, and I've seen this a lot. And they have to fight back and say, no, I'm supporting them in a different way. This is how I'm doing things. And so we're like the middlemen. I'm not, like, I have wonderful parents, and I don't struggle with that, but a lot of my clients do. And they come to me and they say, not only am I trying to raise my conscious children, but I have my parents telling me I'm doing it wrong constantly. And you spank these children and, tell them no, and they're so spoiled, and on and on and on, right? And so we're getting it from both sides. We're trying to be patient. They're trying to be patient with their kids and be supportive, and then they're hearing it from over here. So there's a lot of activity with that, right? I don't know if you experienced that at all, but I have worked with clients that struggle with that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the things I wanted to bring up, is to explain what conscious parenting is different than default parenting. So we have a lot of parents out there who are afraid to discipline their kids. Now, discipline isn't the same as punishment. People have got to understand that. The word discipline actually means to teach. Punishment is just plain punishment with absolutely no learning. So the way I grew up, I just got punished and had no freaking clue what I was getting punished for. I just knew my parents hit me and I didn't know why. So I have never hit my kids. Now, I'm on the older end of the spectrum. I was in my late 30s by the time I had kids. So my parents have already transitioned out, so I don't have that to work with. But I see this conflict between people who think you're like parents who are almost afraid to parent their children. And so they don't actually do any of the guiding. They just let their kids do whatever they feel like because they don't want to set any kind of boundaries. And then you have conscious parenting, which is saying these are the boundaries, and more consciously work with disciplining them, that in more of like actions and consequences. If this is the choice you make, then these are the consequences that come with that choice. It's actually teaching them rather than just punishing them. But they don't just do whatever they want whenever they want. Right?
Yeah, it's about creating boundaries. I always tell parents, do you take the time to listen to your kids? Because if you did, a lot of people would be surprised with the intellect they have and the knowledge and their wisdom, but a lot of parents don't give their children an opportunity to even express themselves. And that's where the disconnect is. That's where that style of it's my way, you listen to me. And these kids are screaming. They're trying to tell you, no, like your way is wrong, actually, but they're respectful. Sometimes it may not come off that way, but then when parents come down and actually listen to what they're saying, it's happened to me before. And I'm like, man, she was right. Like my 6-year-old was right and I was wrong. And, and I go back, and it's hard to do, but I'll go back and I apologize. I'm sorry. Mommy was wrong. And that is very hard for a lot of people to do, but I do it. And I think that children respond to that because they're like, oh, wow, mom and dad are acknowledging that they were wrong and I was right, and it's all about that balance of parenting and supporting and guiding and learning. And it's the delicate balance of going back and forth. There are absolutely those parents that are so, what's the word I'm trying to think of? So traumatized from their childhood of being severely abused and not heard or not loved, that they are parenting their children completely opposite end of the spectrum, like you said, and they're the ones letting their children do anything they want. And that's not the way to parent them, because they're just shifting the cycle, but it's going to continue. And so there have to be boundaries. There has to be respect. There has to be patience. But parents need to listen. Just listen to them. Listen to what they have to say.
Yeah. So for me, that's mutual respect, which is something that I don't think parents have actually been taught, to respect your children. It's like the old narrative is respect your elders. But when we come from a position of mutual respect and actually sit and listen to our children, they are brilliant, the information that they can bring in. And like you, I have gone back and apologized to my kids. I was wrong. I admit that I was wrong. Or I'll go back and apologize to them and say, you know what? That was an issue inside of me. You guys didn't do anything wrong. You triggered something inside of me that needed my attention. And I'm sorry I yelled at you, because this was my issue, not yours. And I apologize for that. And listening to them, because that's what they want. They just want to be heard.
Yeah.
But a lot of parents just stick them in front of a TV or in front of a video game, and rather than sitting and actually having the conversations with them, because these kids, even like you said, at 6 years old, are capable of having adult level conversations.
They are.
Yeah. And acknowledging that. That's how we break that cycle, is through mutual respect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
So, wow, that was a fast hour.
I know. It always goes by really fast.
An hour. So I just want to thank you so much for being here. This has been a great conversation. I think that a lot of people out there who are wondering how to parent in this new world, or I hope we can answer some of those questions. One of the questions here is, when will it shift? It already has been shifting. What a lot of people, I think, are expecting is this like instant shift. Everything on our planet is a process, and it is I call it like an evolution of belief. Everything is in a continual stage of evolution. So the entire school system is not going to change tomorrow. This is requiring every single one of us as parents, and even with our kids, sitting down and putting on paper, if we could design a new system, what would it look like? And then focus on creating that. When enough of us actually bring that creativity into our consciousness, reality will shift to follow that. So it's up to us to stop assuming somebody else is going to fix it and take responsibility for fixing it ourselves. And when the message that came in again this morning is, be the change you want to see in the world. Don't expect anybody else to do that change. Be it ourselves. That means digging through our own issues and resolving them, digging into what's wrong with the systems and resolving them, not expecting some leader to go out there and fix it for us, because we're the new leaders. And we need to be the ones who make the difference and who make the change. So yeah, get out scratch paper and sit down with the kids and draw out what the new system if in an ideal world, what would school look like, and then get busy creating it, because nobody else is going to create it. We're the creators of our reality. So yeah, I don't know. That was a bit much, but it is that a lot of people don't understand what be the change actually means. And that is what it means.
Yeah.
Don't wait around for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Be it, feel it, project it, want it, and then release it, and just and it will come. And it's a process, like you say. And some things happen slowly, and then other things, time will speed up, and we just have to go with the flow. But keep positive. So don't say, I hate the school system, I hate this, and this is terrible. It's I see a change coming. I believe that there's going to be a change. And then I visualize it. I'm a very visual person. So I visualize inside with the teacher.
The more of us, and the more of us who vision it, the faster it will happen. That's what people need to understand. We actually create our reality by our visions. So the more of us who focus on that vision, the faster it will occur. So if we want to know when it's going to happen, it's up to us to envision it. Mm-hmm. And when this becomes our collective consciousness, it will shift.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here. Let everybody know what your website is so they can find you, and how the kids can find you, and how you can best serve humanity.
So the Children's Center is divinelyguidedchildren.com. That's where all the child classes are, support groups, virtual classes. We also have parents sessions as well, and parent support groups and parent classes. So we're not leaving the parents out. You can get Divinely Guided book on Amazon, and Intuitive Transformation Evolution is also on Amazon. And then if there are adults out there looking for energy healing, that's on my other website, intuitivewellnesscenter.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I am so grateful that I got to meet you and have this amazing conversation with you. And I really hope, I think there are a lot of people out there that are going to be able to get something from this conversation, because these star seeds, there's not just a few of them. I think it's pretty much the vast majority of the children that are coming in right now. So we need to know how to help them be who they came here to be, as the guides that they chose us for a reason.
Exactly.
And feeling incredibly blessed and grateful that, as difficult as these children are to raise, that they chose us to be their guides.
Yeah.
Pretty dark.
Well, thank you, Victoria, for having me today on your channel. I'm very grateful to have met you as well. And I'm sure we'll do more. There's a lot of things to talk about. We could do a conscious parenting series and do different topics. So there's lots to talk about.
That's a great idea. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, and as always, until next time, get bold, be fearless, and live free.